Aloha. Welcome to this edition of Senate Spotlight. I'm Senate Majority Leader Brickwood Galuteria, your host for today's show. Now, for today's segment, we will feature my colleague, Senator Brian Taniguchi, who represents District 10, which encompasses the areas of Manoa, Mo'iliili, Makali, and he tells me just a skoshi of Makiki. And welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brick.
Yeah, nice to have you with us.
Oh,
you
good
know,
to be here.
Today, Senate Spotlight, normally we get into the issues right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, for the benefit of our viewers, it'd be nice to know a little bit about Senator Taniguchi, where you were raised, and the first thing that happens, what high school, right? So let's begin there, and then we'll get into your career as a legislator. So you're from the Manoa area.
Born and raised in Manoa.
Yeah.
And went to all the Manoa school. There wasn't a Noelani school at the time, and I guess I would have gone to Noelani because I lived right behind what is now Noelani School.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, but Manoa School and Stevenson intermediate at that time, and Roosevelt. And then, so I...
born and raised?
Born and raised there. I went to UH, Manoa.
Yeah.
Went to the UH Law School.
Yeah.
After that, I worked for a judge for 2 years.
Hiroshi Kato.
Hiroshi Kato, yeah.
Yeah.
A long time legislator. And then I decided, during my law clerk time, I decided, I kind of wanted to run for office. I'd been involved in student government.
Oh, you were?
At Roosevelt.
And what office did you hold?
Well, I guess I was vice president of the student body in my senior year.
Oh, no kidding.
And so we had gone through a relatively tumultuous time at Roosevelt when we had, who we call Tom Gill Jr. He's known as Tony Gill now.
Tony, sure.
Yeah, he was a year ahead of me. And so he started this whole thing about abolishing the dress code, off-campus lunches, and just kind of more freedom for students, students' rights.
Well, he had the Gill DNA.
Yeah,
right?
he had the Gill DNA.
So, okay, and what year was that?
This was, I graduated in 69.
Okay, 69.
So I took over from him, after his term, yeah.
Well, those were some tumultuous years generally as a nation.
Yes.
We're going through some
Vietnam War, civil rights,
yeah,
a lot of that stuff.
And so at that particular time, you wanted to get into public service.
Yeah.
You felt...
And I felt comfortable. I felt like public service was something that I enjoyed doing. I served on committees in high school, like the graduation committee or that kind of stuff. And even at Stevenson, I was in a service club that we did the JPO work at in the mornings for Stevenson.
Did you blow the whistle or did you hold the sign?
I held the sign. Yeah, I held the sign. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was a service club, and that was one of the not projects, but that was one of the things that the service club did. So I've been kind of involved in that kind of public service thing from Stevenson time.
Well, we all have our reasons for serving. Was there one particular tipping point that you can recall, or somebody that influenced you on the national scene, on the local scene?
Well, I would just say this. I think when I was in the 9th grade, I was a class officer for my class. We were 9th graders at Stevenson. At that time, Stevenson went from the 7th, 8th, had 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And Roosevelt was, sophomore, junior, senior. But 9th grade, we had a big dance. And a couple of kids got caught drinking or with alcohol, and so the student government officers along with the kids were called into the office. Yeah. It's like, and I think that was a kind of big lesson for me in a sense that, I had to kind of take responsibility for something I didn't really do. I mean, it's the first time it dawned on me, but you got to take responsibility. You got to provide some leadership, in terms of taking responsibility and trying to, make amends for what happened and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, to that extent, I think that was kind of a tipping point for me. Yeah.
And 30 years later now, no, more than 30 years. I mean, you're talking about 9th grade.
Yeah.
And you've been in the legislature 3 decades long.
Yeah.
Can you recall that? I mean,
yeah, I was still in diapers at the time.
As a matter of fact, we're going to toss up on the screen, everybody, some of those pictures of Senator when like that.
I was more handsome.
I can't see any difference, to tell you the truth. But I guess that's the first class. And oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, you don't look any different to me.
I don't know. The years it's been a struggle.
You use the brush, then now you use a comb.
I use a
Huh?
yeah. So yeah.
Okay,
so
so
it's been tough.
when you got in, though, there were some, colleagues of yours that now have gone aspired to a higher office.
Yeah. We had 15, 16 guys in my class that came in with me into the house that year. And so there's a lot of change. John Waihe, Meiji Hirono are probably two of my more notable classmates. Everybody else is not in public office, not in public service anymore. Just Meiji and myself, I guess, to some extent.
What kept you going?
Well, I think for me, every year is a little different. You have some different issues. You have sometimes you have a different set of leaders or different set of chairmen, or and how that interaction goes on is something I really enjoy.
Some of the people that let's go back to before you served in office, and you entered into the House, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but before that, you said you were with your law clerk for Hiroshi Kato.
Yes.
And how did that impact your service or your life?
Well, I guess for me, I guess one of the main things it taught me is that I probably don't want to be a judge.
Really?
Yeah.
And we got to confirm them.
Yeah. So, and what it takes to be a judge. And I think, Hiroshi Kato was a great man, and he was a great legislative leader. He was also a good judge, and you could tell that when he made decisions and stuff, it came from the heart. And it's always kind of heart, kind of gut wrenching to kind of do some of these decisions, because the things that come to trial, because he was a circuit court judge, so things that come to trial, people are fighting. I mean, people are just, they're totally split, and they would rather take their chances in court of law than try to settle the thing out. So it's really gut wrenching to kind of go one way or the other on some of these things, because usually there's some merit on both sides.
These type of discussions are great because it can reveal for the average viewer what the court system is like. Maybe you can provide us with an overview of district court, circuit court, and what type of cases goes through the court, because you mentioned circuit court, and a little bit more.
Yeah, the district court is more your kind of the court that everybody has kind of will probably have more contact with. It's
traffic tickets,
it's small claims, that kind of stuff. It's smaller claims, and normally people kind of do the traffic court thing, and so that's district court. So it's kind of more the court of the people. Circuit court is where you have a larger amounts involved. Usually it's commercial. Judge Kato handled the probate court, so we had a couple of cases where actually, will contests and things went to trial.
Oh yeah.
So we've had a couple of those, which are very
painful.
Painful. It's one of those things where you don't want it to happen, but the sides are already kind of already polarized, and so it's just a tough kind of stuff.
Well, then for those of you who are watching, it's a good idea to get your family matters in order.
Yes.
So that you don't have to.
It's always better when you can kind of agree to things. I mean, it's just like the legislature, right? It's better when the parties involved in legislation can kind of work out some of the details. They come to us and we kind of look at it, and rather than us trying to solve problems for people, it's better when the groups can get together and work something, and then we'll try to get it into the whole legislative thing. But if they're fighting, normally it's hard to accomplish things. Yeah.
Many times people. Well, they seem to feel as if the idealism wears off. When you came in '81, eyes wide open.
Oh yeah.
Dreams, visions.
Change
the world.
I guess the big thing I thought was that I would be able to pick the issues I wanted to, and I push those issues.
What were they at the time?
I guess we had some things about housing. Housing was a big concern. People being evicted, and people were being evicted for development and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of push that as one of my things.
And this was before all of the protocols too, the EV and
yeah,
such,
yeah.
right?
This is way before that. This is coming out of I guess, Kalama Valley, the pig farmers, agriculture, Judge Santos, that kind of stuff. And that at that time it's still volatile, and there was and so so that's the kind of context that it was in.
So what was your drive and your initiative, was it tampered by the reality of the political process?
Well, I think, I've always been sort of an optimistic, kind of idealistic person. And so I think coming in, like I said, I thought what I'd be doing is just, that one issue or two issues I'd be very, I can deal with. But I came to learn that as a legislator, you have to know everything. You vote on everything, right? And so even the smallest, what you would consider the smallest kind of issue is very important to certain people, right? And so you have to know enough about the people, the context, the issues, so that you can vote properly. And it's everything. You vote, we vote on everything.
Yeah, we do.
On all the changes to the law. Not just, we can't pick and choose what we want. And so that was the biggest, I think, lesson for me, that you really do need to get in and learn, meet people, understand how systems work, see how you can improve things, and try to do it that way.
That's always interested me about how people prepare for the process of decision making, because everything's coming at you. It's like drinking through a fire hose with the information, and you need to make your way through it adequately so that you can make your decision to the best of your ability. Do you have a certain process that you use?
Well, I guess what I learned early in the House was that you need to work with the administration. In other words, you need to prepare before. It's like lawyers. You don't go to trial not knowing anything about the case, and you can
I've heard with lawyers you need to know the answer.
Right. So we have lawyers.
Question.
We have depositions, and so prior to the trial, we ask all the parties all the questions, and so that deposition is what is, we use in the court to say, hey, this is what you said in the deposition. If they say something different at the trial, we'll try to, nail them on that, right? But to say that, you're not telling the truth because you said this in the deposition. And so similarly in legislative hearings and stuff, as a chairman of, some of these other committees that I had, I would go in and I would meet with the department, I would meet with the people who were involved with the issue, and I'd get a sense of what it was before I had my hearing. And so that way, rather than confront people at a hearing or asking questions at the hearing, I felt my job as a chairman was to basically moderate so that my members can understand what's going on. And that's kind of what is a little different, I think, than now, where we have a lot of people who are inexperienced, who kind of, they'll go to the hearing not knowing really what the bill says or what a lot of the impacts might be, and they'll just kind of wing it, And so I think that's a difference. We had a lot more. Well, there was a certain amount of discipline that people had when I first got in. Part of it was, we had the old, some of the old 442 guys are still there. The guys who had lived on plantations.
Who are some of the names you remember?
Well, I mean, somebody like Najo Yoshinaga, John Ushijima. Some of these people were still in office when I was there. Of course, George Ariyoshi was the governor, and so.
Nothing like learning from these guys, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there were times where you thought young whippersnappers would come in, and then they just clip your wings over there.
Yeah.
And that comes with time.
Yeah.
You see, so guys like me who've been in, it was a short timer.
Yeah.
But I watch guys like you who have been in it, and the little nuances of how you get things done, very, very important to learn.
Yeah.
But still, time in the saddle is important too. You get bumped, you get bruised, and then you kind of do it a little different the next time.
Oh, yeah.
And due diligence on learning. And now you've been a committee chair of every committee. I mean, how can you not over 30 years, even in the House and in the Senate?
Yeah, I've been a bunch of committees. I mean,
maybe we should say which ones you weren't chair of.
Well, I haven't been in the human services area a lot. Health, human services. That's probably an area that I haven't gone into. But consumer protection, ways and means, judiciary, labor, all that kind of stuff. I've chaired higher education, transportation.
Sure.
So I've been chair of those committees.
Of those committees, and for the benefit of the viewer, and this is also a learning process for all of us, right? Certainly, Senate Spotlight, we should learn about the senators that serve you, but also about the committees that they serve and they chair. The three top committees, or we call A bracket committees, are the ones that you've chaired. Right? Judiciary most recently. Ways and Means before that.
And consumer protection.
Consumer protection before that. What were some of the more challenging issues that you had to tackle as, say, Judiciary Chair?
Well, you know that one. I guess civil unions was probably one of the most challenging for me a couple years back. we had a situation where we weren't clear about whether the governor was going to veto it, and if we wanted to override, whether the House would be able to override.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, I tried to position the Senate so that we'd be in a position to be, contributing to this whole thing. We did have some members who pressed for votes and all that kind of stuff, but I think in the end, it came out okay. I think we did our job, and I think some people don't understand some of the internal dynamics within the Senate, and I think that advocates and things who, I guess, made YouTube parodies of me and all that kind of stuff. But, we did have, I think, strong support in the Senate, and yet I think people felt that the Senate didn't come through until the end, and that's unfortunate. But I think we were able to kind of protect our institution as a Senate and be able to move forward, even though we had this very,
It was volatile on the inside. A lot of people don't realize amongst colleagues how the dynamics were very, very interesting at the time. But I believe that your diligence as a committee chair of Judiciary was to vet as much as possible the community's interests as well.
Yeah.
Now, in doing so, you had probably one of the longest hearings in the history of.
Civil unions was 18 hours.
18 hours,
yeah.
right?
So we let people testify, and certainly there are hundreds of people that testified, and so.
And after a while, you end up. It's like you're hearing the same things, but you still got to let them do it,
We
right?
still gotta let them, and we reminded people that we've been here for 12 hours. We've heard a lot of argument. We've been here for 15 hours. We heard a lot. But still, every person who wanted, and I credit my committee. Really, that they stuck it out. And we kind of galvanized, I guess, as a committee then. And we've also, as judiciary chair, I also did the super ferry stuff.
Oh yeah.
Where super ferry might go under unless they get that expedited EIS and all that kind of stuff. And so the governor had pressed ahead, and we said, hey, you kind of need at least an environmental assessment or something, and they just went ahead. And so we came to the point where we needed to do something. Otherwise, the state would lose in its harbor fund, that $40 million that we had put up to help super ferry with their, I guess, their docking boat and all that.
Yeah, right out here in a little harbor.
Yeah, and so that was probably in 4 days we did 3 islands in Oahu, four islands, and it was coming after the governor had gone to Kauai, where people were out on their surfboards trying to block super ferry from coming to Kauai, right? And we had that tension, and they had the governor had a meeting, and people were yelling at her and all that kind of stuff, and they called the security. They said they're going to arrest kids and all. It was like, boy. So we go to Kauai in that context, right? And we set it up at a local elementary school because we have access to a cafeteria, and we listened to the people. And I think that was one of the most enlightening things I've been through, where people came and they testified, and they felt at least that we gave them a chance, even if we didn't agree with what they were saying, and even if they thought it was kind of a done deal. We did amend the bill eventually, based on what people were saying at the hearings. But we heard them, and so it was just amazing. When the hearing broke up, there was like a reception line. There was like 40, 50 guys were standing in line to just thank everybody on the committee for coming to Kauai, listening to what they had to say. They understand we might not, we might still vote for this bill that allows, super ferry to come to Kauai, but hey, they got their say. That was like, it was just amazing, actually.
It is. It's very fulfilling to see that, especially when we know that the polar opposites are going to show up for the discussion.
Yeah.
But when you start moving to the center and those who are more moderate and they start getting passionate about it, then you really got an issue.
Yeah.
Really got an issue. I recall it was such a visual that one surfboard, the guy on the surfboard, and he was hitting like water towards the super. It was like that tank man in China in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah,
it was really.
It was very, very tense. I mean, you could cut it with a knife.
Really?
It was very tense, and I think they thought we were going to do something like what the governor did and just kind of scold them. But no, we were there. We had a hearing. We heard what they had to say, and we actually incorporated some of the things that they had said. And so that's kind of what I think is that's when you do good legislation. When you go out, even in this kind of situation where you can go out and listen to the people and try to hear what they're trying to say and try to incorporate that in the legislation.
You were Ways and Means chair in a different time. Right now, we're dealing with some real fiscal restraints.
Yes.
Obviously with the recession and coming out of it and trying to make our way through. But you were chaired when?
2000 to 2006.
That was before the
Before the
bottom
crash.
fell out in the economy. Right?
But I would say I was there I was chair for 6 years along with Representative Takamini, who was the finance chair. The 6 years I was there, 5 of the years we had deficits. Not as big, not $1 billion, but we had, tens of millions of dollars kind of deficit almost every year. And so we had these small deficits, that we had to deal with. And so it was a situation where it was different from the past when, I guess there was more money and, the economy was doing a lot better. But so 5 of the 6 years, I think people think that I was out there spending all this money, but no, we 5 or 6 years we had a deficit, a revenue shortfall, and so we had to kind of make up for that somehow. And we raided funds.
So, Senator, how do you balance a budget?
Similarly to what people are doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, to a smaller extent. Yeah.
So you balance a budget, just for the benefit of those watching us, you balance a budget in several ways. The last way you want to do is maybe raise the tax.
That was probably my first option, but we didn't go there. But I think one of the last options you want to do is not lay off too many people. I mean, you can do some peripheral stuff, but once you start laying, like I think we did that with when Governor Cayetano went through this, was going through this thing, right? And so we had deficits. So he did try at one point. He tried to lay off. He actually did lay off about 200 or 300 people, and that basically created more of a it created more of a spiraling down of the economy and just more of a negative kind of thing, and just perceptually. And then within that 300, a lot of it was because of collective bargaining and stuff. A lot of those people, it was the new people that had just kind of come in were the guys that kind of got cut off. And so the other people that had kind of positioned, they were able to lateral and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't. I would think that Governor Cayetano would say that wasn't really. He said he would never do it again. Sure. Because it just wasn't what he thought it might do. That it would help downsize government as well as pick up the economy, but it did the opposite. It didn't really downsize government that much, and the economic spiral kept going because this perception that government is now broke or bankrupt or doesn't have money, and so that I think was a lesson that we all learned. I think
as we made our way through the early decade 2000, and you were chair, it was more like nobody move, nobody get hurt. Let's just get our way through this, and then it goes down in 2007, 2008.
Yeah, this is like I don't begrudge anything that people have done to try to balance the budget because the magnitude of what they were facing, it required some layoffs. It required a bunch of things that people feel are not good. But when you do a lot of these things and you're trying to deal with the budget and trying to balance the budget, I know that it's not a matter of do you want this or not. It's more a matter of if you have this or if you cut this or if you don't cut this, then like pension tax. I don't want the pension. Do you want the pension tax or not? People are going to say I don't want the pension tax. But people say, well, do you want this or do you want something else that's more negative? Guys are going to say, no, I don't want that negative thing. And so that's how you got to frame things, I think, a lot of times. People say, well, you want a tax increase or not? Guys can say, no, I don't want a tax increase. If you tell them, well, we need a tax increase because we've cut education. Our social safety net is ripped to shreds. We need to reestablish some of that. We need to look at our ERS, like our unfunded liability, all those kinds of issues. When you say that's the kind of thing that we want to pay for, and you say, well, this is what a tax increase will pay for. You tax fairly, our excise tax is across the board. It's at a relatively low rate, and and you spend wisely. And so you have to tell them what you're going to spend it for. And I think that's how we got to frame an issue if we want to go that route. But certainly, I know that people have philosophical problems with tax increases, but I think that's kind of the way I'm thinking. You package something where you provide for the regressivity of the tax.
Yes.
And you also provide for education. And you say, well, this is where we're going to spend this much on education, this much to restore some of the safety net, and that's kind of what we want to do. And so that's kind of how I see it.
Well, we've come to the end of this. Can you imagine? It's gone. It's power ready.
Oh, okay.
So I tell you what we do. Let's do this again.
Okay.
Let's pick up like some of the things you've done. Roosevelt High School, the community. I mean, we all, it's important for us to fly at 30,000 feet just to give everybody an overview of how we do our business in the Senate.
Right.
But I think if people go to your website, maybe they can get some of the boots on the ground stuff that you've done.
Okay.
Can we do that next time?
Yeah, I think I'd like to talk more about some of our community stuff and how we've kind of tried to use stakeholder meetings to try to get a broad support for issues in the community. And that'd be good, I think.
Thank you, Senator Taniguchi.
No, thank you.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Now, big aloha no to Senator Taniguchi. And for all of you, make sure you check out the Senate website for any and all information that you can and want from our state Senate. Mahalo nui loa for joining us. Thank you again for watching the Senate Spotlight. We'll be doing this each and every month. I'm going to have Senator Taniguchi come back to tell us a little bit more about Manoa and some of maybe the tuition at the UH that we can talk about. So tune in next time for the next edition of Senate Spotlight. I'm Majority Leader Senator Brickwood Galuteria. Mahalo, everybody, and aloha.
Aloha.